So what happens, see right there, post this link to Facebook. But yes, it will automatically stream to Facebook and YouTube. For some reason, it just doesn't want to connect to my Twitter. I don't understand the problem, but we are trying to work it out.
I'm going to share that to every living person.
Perfect.
I don't actually know what I'm doing.
Okay. All right. Well, while you're sharing that, I'm going to do a quick introduction. So today we are talking about the case of Diane Francis, who is missing. And of course, we have Miss Maggie up in the top left corner, and we have Miss Sherry down in the bottom right corner. They're both family members. Sherry is the daughter of Diane Francis. And of course, we have Miss Erin Reed from Sipping on Some Crime, who did 3 lovely episodes about this case. So yeah, I wanted to get you guys on here because we've all met in person. We met at the Crime Junkie live show last year, and we kind of got acquainted and got to talk about it a little bit, but we haven't talked about it in depth, you guys. So I wanted to get you on here and just kind of tell the story and help spread awareness however we can. So whoever would like to jump in first, feel free. I want to, of course, extend that honor to Sherry if you'd like to kick it off and talk about your mom and what she was like and how all this kind of happened.
So I was born in New Jersey, and originally my parents, my biological parents, my father and mother, stayed together for, I would say, 3 years. And at that time we moved to Florida from New Jersey. And that's basically when it started, and that would have been 1996. My mother ended up with a different man. She left my father, and that's when Department of Children and Families became involved. It was around 1996, 1997, and basically up until 2010, I was in and out of foster care from 1996 to 2010. And at that point, I got out of foster care and asked my family where my mother was. And basically, they had no idea as far as I was concerned. Now, in between there was a lot of stuff that happened. There was a lot of people involved, a lot of boyfriends. So as far as right now, we don't know what happened. She could be living a completely different life. She could be a mental case somewhere. She could be homeless somewhere. She could be dead somewhere. At this point, anything is a possibility. And that's what we're facing. I've gotten different testimonies from numerous different people. 3 in particular are both her parents and my father himself. Yeah, that's basically what we're dealing with here. Just a lot of deceased people, a lot of drug addicts that don't remember anything. So
people that don't want to talk, even if they do remember.
Yeah,
I get that. Well, and what does that testimony look like that you just mentioned?
Well, there's 3 of them. I actually have them right here. They're all typed out. One was an interview with my grandma Rose. She basically is very detached. She's a very detached parent. She says that somewhere along the lines when my mother was 12, she broke. She was broken.
Yeah. Which.
Yeah, it's tough because, like I say, in the podcast, she was just becoming a teenager. And her parents were divorcing, so they were giving her all this extra responsibility. So it was really hard for her.
Which they both admit. Both of them separately in statements about talking to each other admit, at 12, we probably put way too much of an expectation on her. So for Rose and David to agree on something like that, they agree on 2 things in my book. One, that they got divorced and they refuse to talk about why. They both just say it didn't work out, and that's it. That's their final dry cut answer. And I mean, I would like to know more information, but we can't judge that for them, I guess. And I guess they don't want to share it. So, I mean,
yeah, because it's like a 12-year-old bloke. It's pretty intense.
It is. And they both admit to just putting too much on her. So it is those are like the only two common threads you'll find between Rose and David, though. So when you're trying to build back to who Diane was, more importantly, who she was before she disappeared, how she got involved, nobody just decides to pick up drugs and alcohol because some people do because they're bored, but they don't continue to do it. Like, she was covering some kind of pain and hurt, and I don't think anybody stopped to ask her what that was.
Yeah. Sorry to stop in such a sentimental moment, but yeah, it looks like we're still getting some feedback, and I just don't want anybody to turn off and not listen because of the feedback. So,
Right.
If you guys aren't listening through headphones, if you could turn down your speakers to like just the point where you can hear us, it might be the issue. Let me see. Is that better? Okay, I think is that better, you guys? Can you guys? Okay, Julie says better.
Is it from my side, or are we good now?
Oh, you're so good, Erin.
Yay, we did it. Okay, yeah, I just don't want the audio to distract anybody and not be able to hear the story. I'm so sorry to have to
Right.
Okay,
That's okay.
Perfect.
I love it.
So yeah, basically my grandmother's testimony, just to like sum it up, they're both really long. Actually, all three of them are very long. My grandfather's being the longest. He's very descriptive. He goes into immense detail.
He's a great writer. He really is a great writer.
Yes. Both Erin and I have read a book that he's writing about when he was a child. And I mean, it's 15 pages front and back, maybe. That's like putting it lightly. But he is very sentimental, and he is very, he loves with his whole self. And my grandmother is not that way. She has learned to protect her feelings, and she feels like the entire family has outed her, probably having to do with the past and, if she was or was not an abusive mother. I don't know because I wasn't there, but I've heard rumors, and all three of her children have a common gift for her. So I imagine that there's a reason for that. Now, yeah, like I said, her father is totally different. He goes into full detail. And he's the one that, like I said, told me that he had his cop friends go out and look for her. So, like I've told Erin in the past, a lot of it with my family is like they've just drug it out so long, inside themselves and in their own hearts, and they've just beat themselves to the pulp basically with this. They don't know what to do anymore. Like, my grandfather has had maybe 3 or 4 heart attacks. He's died on the table about 3 times. He's almost 90 years old. And so for him, his reasoning that he doesn't look for his daughter is that he's just not healthy enough. He doesn't know that the next time he goes looking for her and finds her deceased or finds her in whatever condition she's in, that it might not kill him, completely, just like him in, because he, now I don't know how true or false that is. I can't say what they have and have not done because I wasn't there, but I do know that I see it. I see the hurt there. And the fact that they talk to me the way that they do about it, I know that something is keeping them from looking for her, if that makes any sense. I try to them too much anymore. I used to get so angry. I still do at times, but I'm trying to just do my own, go my own path, do this on my own. And I feel like that's what's right for my mother, honestly, in the end.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing it alone. I mean, but is there anybody call? Of course, we know that Erin helps and that Maggie helps, which Maggie is your cousin. It's amazing help. I just wanted to put that out there for anybody who didn't know. But yeah, is there anybody outside of this circle that's helping you? Is your sister, I believe her name is Jessica, is she helping?
Jessica, in a sense, like, I guess remembers more than I do, but if you speak to her, she'll tell you that she's blocked it all out her whole life so that she doesn't really remember anything. So I think mentally she remembers a lot, but physically she blocks it all out. And so for her, she doesn't want to dredge it all up. She doesn't want to relive all of this. She wants to find my mother, and she wants to be there when she's found.
Right.
That is more than clear. She would give anything to see her again. But I don't think that she physically or mentally can handle it just like everyone else.
Sure.
She doesn't want to do the fighting part of it.
And it's a
She doesn't
lot.
want to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I don't blame her. I don't.
Right. And I get that.
asking
obviously.
someone to go back and like live their trauma, because that's what we ask all the victims' families to do. We go back and ask you to relive that trauma again and again and again and again, in hopes that while you have to tell it, it has to break your heart again and again and again. We're going to find something new and a new piece, because that's the only way we can do it. But people miss that point of it so much, and it drives me nuts, because we just scrape that wound open. I get off the phone with you after recording and I just cry, because I go back and I listen to you and I'm like, I can see little Sherry going through these things, and I can see little Jessica, and also just her having to be put in a position where she feels like she had to protect you, and her being just barely a year older than you to make those decisions and be conscious like that. No child deserves to go through things like that.
It's true. And, you know, like I try not to, you know, push it on her too much, I guess. In the past, we did our own searching together. Like in 2014, I think it was, she came to where I was staying in Florida, in Melbourne, right where, you know, my mom is missing from. I stayed there my whole life up until 4 years ago, when I couldn't handle it anymore. But she came to where I was staying with my ex-boyfriend, and we made flyers. We went to every house we ever lived in with my mom. Any ex-boyfriend we ever knew of, we left a flyer on their front porch or in their mailbox. I mean, and another thing is, the ex-boyfriend that is a person of interest in mine and Aaron's eyes, anyway, he claims that he received a flyer from Jessica and I back in 2014, and that's how he knew to call the Jacksonville Police Department, right? He lived in Bunnell, Florida then, and we never went to Bunnell, Florida. That was about a 2 hours distance from where I was handing out flyers. So that was a complete lie.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty interesting. But like, just to show you, my sister did do the searching with us at one point, and I guess it just became too much for her. She's had some traumatic things happen in her life, and I won't go into detail because that's her business, but just some major things that mentally affected her, and I don't blame her for kind of taking a step back. I will say that it hurts to have to do it alone. That part is tough. Yeah. But I don't resent her for it so much, because this has always been my fight. It's not, I don't expect anyone else to do it, you know?
Girl, I feel that.
Yeah.
No tea and no shades, like anybody who doesn't want to help. I just always want to, like, I wonder, you know, like who's there for you and what's going on, and how are people helping you, or how are they not? But yeah, I mean, I always respect people's choices to fight or not fight. Totally up to them. Right. But I think right now people are probably wondering, okay, like what's going on? Like, how did we get to this point with the boyfriend and all of that? So let's kind of retrace those steps about, you know, it's my understanding that at one point you lost contact with your mother. You went into foster care, you came out, and all of a sudden she's gone. So what does all that look like?
So a lot of people get confused about this too. Jessica and I were removed from my mother's house multiple times. And even prior to the state removing us, we were removed voluntarily by her. She gave us 2 family members to care for us because she knew she couldn't. So this happened maybe 4 or 5 times, 3 that the state were involved. So the last time would be 2003. And that was the last time I ever saw my mom physically face to face. The next time that I heard from her would be in 2004 or 2005, when her rights were terminated. And at that point, I did not see her. I only heard her voice over an intercom in a courtroom. And the same goes for my father. I have never physically met my father. My sister has a couple times. But I would love to meet him. I speak to him all the time. So he really has nothing to do with this. Unfortunately, he was cut out of the picture in 1995. So that was the end of my dad, but my mom would be 2003, and that was it. We just didn't see her again. Like I said, there was the intercom phone call in the courtroom, and that's when her rights were terminated. They basically made statements, and she agreed or disagreed. Same with my father. And I just remember Jessica and I falling down in the courtroom just as soon as they said, "Do you understand, what's been stated here?" And she said, "Yes." That's all she said. As soon as I heard her voice, I started freaking out. You just want to say, "Hey, like, talk to me," or,
Of course.
So then after that, I believe we were placed in a home 3 hours from Brevard County. So they were trying to put some distance in between my mother and Jessica and I, because we were known to want to go back to her, and she would show up in the middle of the night to take us, like to the point where we would sleep with our shoes on as kids. We knew mom was coming to the window at night. We knew to be ready. And so, I think it was like 6 months passed or something like that. And Jessica and I were used to going into foster care and then visitation shortly after. So like we were always able to see her shortly after being placed in a home, no matter where it was or what it was. But not this time.
Yeah.
This time a woman came and she told Jessica and I this was like 6 months later after we were placed in this home. She told us to come to her trunk of her car in the driveway, and I remember we walked out, and she had this large bin, and it was filled with all of our favorite outfits and all of our favorite candies and chips and drinks and stuff like that. It was from our mom. So it was kind of like a parting gift, I guess.
Care package.
Yeah.
I've told her in this story because it's crazy. Jessica and I were so trained. It's not even funny. Like, so as soon as this package showed up in front of the foster parents, we're like, "Oh, yay, chips, like our favorite clothes, whatever." As soon as they left, we dragged that thing into our room and searched it thoroughly. Like, I mean, dumping everything out. We didn't even care what was in there. And there was a little folded up note. It was probably like folded this big.
Yeah.
In the back of my sister's favorite jeans. And we unraveled it. And it was basically my mom pouring her heart out. Just that, like, "I'm sorry. I will be back. This isn't the end." There's this thing I always post on Facebook. It's a quote from her. It's like, "When you see the moon, I'm seeing the same moon. And when you see the stars, I'm seeing the same stars. So we could never be too far apart." And like, just little stuff like that she put in the note that told Jessica and I it wasn't over for her. You know what I mean? And that was it. I didn't get out of foster care until 2010. So five or 6 years later about. And that's when my family basically said they hadn't seen her and that they had cop friends look for her, but nothing happened. So, I mean, and we were in different homes, adoptive homes, respite care homes, overnight homes. I slept in my caseworker's office a couple of times because there was nowhere for us to go. Like, nobody wants 2 teenage girls or preteen girls. You know what I mean? That's like trouble waiting to happen. So
With kids in foster care, you're exactly right.
I was put in a library one night because they didn't know where to put me. So actually I was there for like a week, and I was in the basement of a library, and I had 2 officers that stood outside of my door because they had no foster care or no placement to put me. I'm like, am I seriously in a basement of a library right now?
sounds about right. And like, who's to say
and I
that
think
something weird couldn't have happened to you? Nobody would have ever known. Like, they
Nobody
just
would have
don't
known.
care. They don't
Like,
care.
once you're in the system, it doesn't matter what age you go in either. It's just, people don't realize literally if they don't have a place to put you, they will just makeshift whatever and put whoever in charge of that child. Something that I really want to fight is for like more children's, we have victims' rights, but not if you're a child. Not if you're
People are saying they can't hear you well, Erin. Sorry, I need to be picking on your audio left and right.
No, you're good.
It's like, turn it down, turn it back up.
I know. GetVokl is so new. Sorry, guys. Please bear with us. And this is a good time to tell you, if you guys are watching on other platforms, like, tune in on GetVokl so we can see your comments. If you have any questions, feel free to submit them. I'm sure they'd be happy to insert them. But yeah, no, I mean, foster care is horrific. I worked with kids there, and it was scary and it was sad. And I left leaving very disheartened about it and very sad for all the kids I worked with. It's just a crazy story, but you get out and you decide to look for your mom eventually. Like, what does that look like? Like, where is her last trail? Like, what? Yeah.
Her last trail would be she was in Jacksonville using 2 names technically. So this is a funny story, and just to like give some people some hope out there. Like, stuff happens to me so randomly. I tell Maggie and Aaron all the time, divine intervention is my best friend, because more often than not, something just crosses my path. I don't look for it. It just comes to me. And one day I got the bright idea to search my mom's jail number instead of just her first and last name, thinking that, you know, maybe something else would come up. And this name came up, Kimberly Teresa Foreman. And it automatically put a light bulb off on my head, because Foreman is the last name of her last boyfriend. And so that kind of piqued my interest. I was like, why was she using that last name? I still haven't found out why, but the last name was used in Jacksonville, Florida, and she was frequenting this hotel on that name and her real name. So another thing that I bring up all the time is the police were allowing her to be arrested on 2 different identities, and I don't know why. Both names come up. They know it's her. Her fingerprints are attached to it. Everything.
Yeah.
Maybe
they just like
in my opinion.
Much. I mean, there's a lot of crime in Florida. And Chris Duett is actually, from Criminal Perspective, he speaks to people in prison, and he's telling you that's a really smart thing to do. So if you didn't see that, yay from Chris.
Thank you. I mean, with this stuff, 15 years of this stuff, you get these crazy ideas, and some don't work and some do, and you're just like, you know what? I'm glad I did that, or man, I'm badass. You know,
you're badass.
Sometimes, yes, I try. But you know, I did that. So then bam, here's a new identity. Here's a whole new name. Here's a whole new person. And so then I start looking into Kimberly Teresa Foreman. And apparently she's the woman that frequents this hotel and trespasses at this hotel, where she has a husband. And I put in quotations because she's never been married. And so each time they were showing up to trespass her, she said, I didn't know I was trespassed, even though the citation was pinned on the wall behind her. She would reach for the man that she claimed was her husband. Like, she kept trying to reach out to him for, like, don't let them arrest me, or, you know, don't let them take me. And they reported that, but he asked to not be listed. So there's no information on him whatsoever on any of the reports.
And I'm assuming nobody's like
It's
fessed
just
up to it and said, I'm this guy.
Right. And the last boyfriend she had claims to have moved the year that she disappeared. And he claims to know nothing about Jacksonville either. So, and again, all these people have history that they're not proud of. So none of them want to be involved. And if they do want to be involved, they don't want to talk about the ugly stuff.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
They don't want to rehash the things that they've moved on from either, you know? Like, I'm sure it's not easy.
Yeah.
I was never a drug addict, so I don't know, but I'm sure I wouldn't want to relive that if I was clean now, or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely.
Well,
and I think another interesting aspect to this story, we talked about this earlier, I think a lot of people will be interested to know that there's another missing person involved in this case. Can you guys talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's crazy. I mean, I think when 2 people go missing, it really obviously, like, it raises red flags. It's kind of like the Lori Vallow case, where you're like, how do all these people just come up missing and dead, and like, what is going on? So yeah, if you'd like to talk a little bit about that, I think it's super interesting.
So George Kontos is a man that went missing on, I want to say, May 10th, 2015. Don't quote me on that until I get my tablet open.
Yes, even Meredith is like, whoa, I didn't realize there was another missing person involved. Like, I think that's what, I mean, it's a huge factor in it that makes it so suspicious to me, in my opinion, allegedly.
What's funny to me and Sherry is it's like one of the littlest details for us in the massive pile of crazy that, and that's why we forget to mention it most times, is because literally it's a very tiny detail to some of the craziest stuff that we get sent to us all the time about this case. So it's good that you remind us, because we honestly are like, oh yeah, there's this whole other, like it did need its own little series to even try to begin this.
Yeah, no, there's so many factors involved in this. Oh, and so that's Sherry's mom. You can see her. That's Miss Diane on there. Which Diane is also featured on the wall behind Sherry.
All over the place.
And that's the thing about the ex saying he swears that she handed him a flyer. It's like looking at a ghost if Sherry walked up to you.
What can you guys see
Oh,
right
yeah.
now? Because I'm totally looking at my Google Drive for information.
We can only see like your profile picture.
No. Yeah, well, you don't have a camera. Come back.
Which is kind of
Oh,
wonderful.
okay.
So I was like, oh, we need to like try to screen share and get a picture up there. But I don't know how to do that on GetVokl yet.
Well, we do have the Finding Diane Francis Facebook.
Thank you,
as
Maggie.
well.
Yes, of course.
Guys, I'm looking at this, and I know you can't see me right now, but you're going to freak out. So I just
I'm ready.
put something together that's even
Sounds
more
weird.
freaky than we thought it was prior to this. So I pulled up the George Kontos Namus profile on my tablet, and I pulled up the report from John Boggs from when he reported my mom missing, and I'm looking at them both right now, one on my phone, one on my tablet. It's a day apart, not 6 days,
1 day.
not 7 days.
So this
It's
man goes
a
missing,
day.
and then your mom goes missing 1 day apart. That's what we're
One.
saying, just to clarify.
George Kontos went missing on 5/10/2015. John Taylor Boggs called in to report my mom missing on 5/11/2015.
He doesn't call to report her missing.
1 day apart.
Because he calls to say, by the way, I have this girlfriend, which I guess is my ex-girlfriend by now, and I'm the stepfather to her children, and I haven't seen her in 12 years.
Yeah.
Who reports somebody missing 12 years after the fact?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's cases. I'm sure like
John
the
Boggs.
cat will be like, here's 5,000 that I can cite for you.
And I'll just
But to me, I'm like, that's a little weird.
So your neighbor and your friend goes missing, and the very next day, for some reason, you just decide you have to call and report Diane missing? I mean, there could be a train of thought there that we're missing.
We can see his
this is
picture.
I
Yeah,
don't know if you guys can
missing.
see, but this is George Kontos.
What's your friend have to say about all this?
On Namus.
On the day.
Well, I was just gonna read because I haven't seen John Boggs since I want to say 1997, and that's about around the time that he last saw my mom also. So 1997, 1999. And I was just gonna read from a little tidbit of this report that I have from Department of Children and Families. Just a quote from him.
My blood boils.
And Aaron loves this one. Where is it? So basically what happened in this report, this was 2/28/97. They came to the home because John was beating the living daylights out of my mother. And when they asked Jessica and this was 97, so I was 4. I was 4. 4-year-olds don't lie. That's just not what we do. I said that yes, that he beat my mom, and I didn't lie. I told them everything, and my sister tried to make it seem less brutal, I guess, but she still told them that, oh, I guess he pushes her sometimes, or something like that. And when they asked John if he ever laid hands on my mother, he said, well, I never made her bleed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's the direct quote from the
I thought that was so cute. Like, how
the police
sweet
report.
of you.
It's written there. I didn't make her bleed.
That's insane. So Chris wants to know, what's George's criminal record like?
Yeah.
George Kontos?
I have no idea, but I will say that there's I really don't know much about George Kontos himself. To be honest, I feel guilty about it, but I haven't looked much into his case. And the only thing I've read is like general reports, what's on Namus, what's in the news, things like that. Like, and I've spoken to the family, like I said, and given them the information that I feel is pertaining to their case at all. And basically, it's just weird to me that the ex-boyfriend of my mother lived 4 or 5 houses down from this guy in a trailer park in the woods. And the day after he goes missing, he decides to call 12, 15 years later, whatever it is, decides to call
Yeah, I mean,
and say that his ex-girlfriend
suspicious.
is missing too.
It's really weird.
To me, it's like your neighbor went missing and then you were like, oh yeah, what about that girl that I killed like 12 years ago? Maybe I should call to see if anyone's found out about her yet. You know, that's how I feel about it. And to be honest, what the man that I'm talking about told me about George Kontos compared to what he told the news, that just scares me alone. Like, that is just, he told the news he doesn't know why anyone would ever want to hurt his neighbor George. And then I got on the phone with him and he told me something really crazy, that he knows what happened to him. And, you know, he basically that drug dealers got to him
insane.
And they fed him to
But also brings
That's
me
what he
to
told me.
Chris keeps having, I love having Chris on these streams. He like is so smart and thinks of
Yeah.
questions. So Chris is wondering if they were all drug users or like if there's some type of common thread between them all, essentially.
Yes. All drug users.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think we can
Yes.
confirm. I mean, it's not like his family's going to come out and say, you know, he was involved in drugs or anything like that. He's a missing person. A lot of people aren't going to come out and say stuff like that. But as you're investigating it, you do have people that say, you know, he was kind of hanging out with unsavory people and putting himself in situations that weren't good. So, and if you know anything about kind of the women that Diane, or the men that Diane was drawn to, they were, I mean, maybe they've changed, maybe they're better people now, but they were very abusive, aggressive men.
I will say the only one that wasn't like that was her last boyfriend. And I mean, he had his own vices, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
he just
absolutely.
never hit
So
my mother.
what is the, I guess, I think I asked this, but like where does it stand? Like where are we looking at it now? What is the last thing her at this Ramada Inn, is that correct? And these bouts with security and the police and whatnot.
Yep.
Yes. Yes, the last time was 11/28/2005, or I should say 11/27/2005. She was arrested and held overnight for drunken disorderly, I believe. That's the report that that I have on Facebook, where she was maced by 2 security officers and then refused medical attention and like all this crazy stuff. She went to jail that night, got out, and was never
Or that we
seen
can
ever
track down.
again.
Okay,
At
so
least by
Stephanie is
anyone I
asking if
know.
she was arrested and booked into jail. So yes. There's their book-in, release date, anything. Do you have that police report? Yeah. Okay. Which leads me, you know, I know that
Yes.
you've like submitted your DNA to the database, and that they're looking at Jane Doe's. When I listened to Aaron's episodes, I know that it was kind of up in the air. Has there been any progress with that? I know it takes a long time and that those episodes are still fairly new, but I just wanted to follow up.
Yeah. I turned my DNA into the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. I want to say June 15th, which is my birthday, last year. So, and he's basically, at first he told me, you know, it could take a year, it could take 5, it could take 6 months. I don't know. It depends on what the backlog is like. So I guess that my DNA has been sent to the University of North Texas. And it basically depends on whenever they get it back.
I mean,
And
as
he's
much as
gonna
that
just
sucks
let me
and it
know.
sounds terrible, yeah, it is really the way it is. And I know what you were talking about, high priority cases being in front of the line, and there's so many different factors. It's so hard to know.
Yeah, you know, someone gets murdered tomorrow, my case doesn't fall before theirs. You know what I mean? They need to solve that right now when it can be solved. My mom's case is 20 years old. They're not like jumping on that right now.
I feel so much.
You don't understand any of it.
I feel nothing for you. I have no sympathy or empathy in this situation at all. No, like obviously, like obviously I feel for you,
Now
which is
you're
why I
just
had you on
lying to me.
here.
I
I mean,
can't
and, you know, because I want to help and everything in between. I don't have to like sympathize with you to want to help you, but yeah, and I know that you're trying so hard. So you've actually hired a private investigator as well. Is that right?
Yeah, we did.
Too? I mean, people ask why I don't want to hire a private investigator, and
Two.
Erin's not saying nothing because she can't be nice.
Don't do it.
Well, tell us. I'm not saying all private
Erin will go to
investigators are
jail
bad.
if she
I know that
talks
there
to
are
her.
some amazing ones. I just feel like it's kind of like getting a lawyer, right? It's like, I don't know, they might be good, they might not be good. It's a lot of money.
The one that
Hope this works out.
No, it's kind of like getting a lawyer in the sense that's like, hey, you pay me and I'll help you, and if we get anything out of this, you get a percentage. And then it's like you keep paying them and you keep paying them and nothing comes out of it, and then they quit. And then you're like just out of a bunch of money and you're still right where you started. So to me, if your case is as big as like Alyssa's or Diane's, I'd go your own route. I'd go with what you know. I would not just hire someone off the internet, like
we did.
searching private investigators. I would not do that because it's gotten me nowhere.
So
twice.
what happened? I
I'm
mean,
telling you right now.
How did it
And the
end? I
first
mean, you don't
one
have to
was
chronicle the
legitimate.
whole thing or anything if you're not
So-
comfortable with it.
Oh my god, it was terrible. We had to. Okay.
So the first one, let me talk about the first private investigator. He was hired through a church, which is a long story. My sister and I
You're
went
up,
to Christian
Cameron.
school as kids. Through that, we have a lot of associates and friends, things like that. Sorry, my phone. Things like low battery, you've been talking too much. So basically we went to Christian school for about 4 years and we made a lot of good, solid friends through that and everything. And I made a post like before I met
Yeah,
any of you.
we didn't know each
even
other
Maggie,
until 2 years ago.
I made a post.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another crazy story we'll tell you guys. But so through that, I had posted the old GoFundMe that I had, just one that my sister and I made years and years ago. And, this was after like not talking about it on Facebook for about 2 years. I just posted the GoFundMe just to see, if my friends would respond or anything like that or reach out to help. And someone from the church contacted me and was like, hey, take that down. And I was like, why? And he goes, we're going to pay for a private investigator for you guys. And I was like, what? And so I was really excited. We did the whole bit. They even, the man that I'm talking about, who's really good friends with my sister and I, and this private investigator went to Jacksonville. They went there from like Fort Lauderdale, which is 2 hours away. I don't know if you're familiar with Florida, but it's about a 2-hour trip. They went there, searched the hotels, did the whole thing, talked to people. Everyone, I guess, kept calling her someone named Kimmy. And long story short, come to find out there's an actual Kimmy that looks just like my mom who has the same birthday, who's in jail there. So everyone was thinking that it was this Kimmy lady, and it wasn't. So they basically couldn't afford to go and make another trip there from where they live without my sister and I paying them thousands of dollars. So I'm not doing it. I used to live there, I don't know. I feel like in my heart, I'm meant to do this physically myself, if that makes any sense. And at this point, I'm just not really willing to trust anyone else with the task at hand here. Because it's, like I said before, my fight ultimately. I can't expect anyone else to do it. And if I do expect someone else to do it, they're not going to do it the way I want them to do it. So,
No, I totally get it. Absolutely. So the first one
I don't
didn't
know if
work
that makes
out.
any
You went
sense,
one time
but-
or whatever and was like, I need more money. This didn't work out. So what happened with the second one?
Yep. The second one was someone that Maggie and I hired ourselves.
Yep.
And she was someone we found through Facebook.
She came highly
through missing
recommended.
pages I follow and everything.
Very highly.
Basically,
Sure.
yeah, she was highly recommended. She even does like pro bono cases sometimes. She takes one a month or something like that. So it was like awesome. She's actually like for the people, trying to help the people.
It got to the point where like
so we fired
she
her.
wouldn't talk to us for like weeks and weeks at a time. And then when we would ask her a question, she would be like, I'm in my process. And it would just be like somewhere else and not answering any of our questions. And then it got so bad to the point where we had to block her on Facebook. It was so bad.
She actually found out that Aaron and I had made $75 on the GoFundMe, which was to put towards sipping on some crime, because that's a podcast we had talked about making when we, met each other at Crime Junkie. So she found out we made money on there and she flipped out. It was like, I should be involved in this. And she was like getting greedy about my mother's money. Like, that's my mom's money, honey. I hate to break it to you, but that money was earned in the name of my mother, and that doesn't belong to anyone but Diane and her cause.
Like,
you know what I mean?
So
for her to get
fund
greedy,
some type of trip or
No, it's like some flyers, basically.
The GoFundMe.
it's gonna be used. No, it's gonna be used to buy me a new mic so I don't sound like crap on the audio. But like, still, like, it doesn't. It's not your money, and I just felt the greed there, and she kept forwarding me these like Tupperware sales things. I don't know what that was about, but
she sent her a message.
Yeah, she was trying to sell me Gladware.
It was, I had a flyer of your dad that's missing, and Sherry was like, "Wait, my dad's missing?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I mean, Diane." Like,
I don't.
What?
Oh.
No, it was the wrong
insane.
person. She sent it to the wrong person. And I was just like, I felt so bad for the girl that isn't me, because like, it took you 2 more hours to find out that your father was missing because she sent it to the wrong person. It was just such a thing. And I was like, oh my God, you can't be legitimately a good private investigator and this stuff is going on constantly. I'm sorry. So I had to let her go. And, no harm, no foul. Like, she can still do her thing. I don't care. I don't want any part of it. And I'm ready to just do it on my own again, like I always have.
Yeah.
So,
Randy says, I feel bad for your PI experiences. There's got to be a better one out there. And I haven't worked with PI, but I do know of an amazing organization called Private Investigations for the Missing. So they have wonderful board members. I know that Tim and Lance from Crawl Space are involved, along with a ton of other wonderful people. So I have to believe that anyone they work with is amazing. So I might suggest you reach out to them. Let me know if I can help facilitate that anyway. But yeah, I have to believe that there are better ones that can help you and not be so terrible. I'm sorry.
It was bad.
yeah. I'm connected with Private Investigations for the Missing, I believe. I'm not sure if I've communicated with them privately yet or not, but I know
Kelsey
that I'm
says they are
following them,
amazing. Hi, Kelsey.
for sure.
Yeah, Jillian says, Sherry, we talked about it briefly a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I mean, I vouch for people to vouch for.
Okay, yeah.
I
talked to so many people.
Like,
I'm so sorry,
when
guys.
I meet people who have done a podcast and I haven't seen their face and they're like, hi, we talked for 2 hours. And I'm like, I am so sorry. It's just, it's so hard. But what do you do? I think that I mean, hiring a private investigator is definitely a step that I would take if I was in your shoes. I totally get it. It makes total sense. So I don't blame you at all. And I'm so sorry. They're terrible experiences.
Yeah.
It's a hard spot to be in. I think you have people that are genuinely out there to help, and I think some people take advantage of an opportunity, also seem to want to be a part of it in wrong ways that send red flags to you, and you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't quite feel like you should be involved in this, or that you have your heart in it. But then you're afraid to say something because they are helping you, and now you've attached that victim's name to them, especially when they use Facebook and they publicize it. So you can't go bash her, because then it bashes everything that she's worked for.
Absolutely.
Right? So, I mean, it's a really hard spot for these families and these victims to be caught in, because I really think they abuse that system. They're like, I'm going to do what I want to you and watch you say something, and now nobody's going to believe any of the work I did for you. They're going to discredit every victim if you speak out.
No, you're definitely stuck in a hard place for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And there other things I wanted to touch on. I know that, while we're on bad experiences, I know Sarah, you reached out to me not too long ago about a message you got on, I think it was Facebook. You got a message. Do you want to talk about how that was horrible and how it happens all the time and it sucks? Great.
I will say that with most of my family, let me just say, like, everyone excluding Maggie is totally against this. So I get, feedback from that. My family members attack me a lot. Just, just yesterday or the day before, someone commented about, this video right here, what we're doing right now. Someone commented about it and they disagreed that Maggie was involved. And I have to deal with that. And, it goes with what I said before. It's fine if you don't want to do it. It's fine if you want nothing to do with it, but you're not going to convince me that I shouldn't. And it will never be that way. I will always fight for my mom because that's what, my heart is telling me is the right thing to do.
Speaking of, my mom is on this is watching us, just so you know.
And then also...
And the thing was, Sherry, I was actually talking about, which of course, like the thing with family, not having family support sucks. Like I've been there and it sucks a lot and it doesn't feel good. But I get it. But I was actually referring to, you got a message from somebody that said that they had information about your mom.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay, sorry. A little off there. So yeah, I was on Facebook one day and I got a message from this woman. She looked like an older African-American woman. She basically just said that she knew someone who had my mom, she said her neighbor had my mom. That was it. She saw her neighbor walking out of the house with my mom and she knows my mom is there and the neighbor's going to contact me. So I wait and I say, automatically, I knew it was a scam. But I texted back anyway or messaged back anyway. And I said, okay, just let me know, whatever. So hours later, I get a text from an odd number. And it's basically, he's saying, oh, I'm so-and-so. I could look at it right now, but you guys wouldn't be able to see me. Because I'll never delete it. I'll save it in my phone forever. I had the FBI go after that. But basically, they said they had my mom and that their gang member was going to kill her if I didn't come up with the compensation for her life. And I just basically said, good luck with your scam. I gave the police.
This was such a terrible phone call to get out of nowhere. So. By the way.
Oh, sure.
Oh my God.
Well, I'm sure you were torn. So me and Angela actually have the same question. How much did they ask you for? If you don't mind sharing, you don't have to, of course.
That's my
mom. Okay.
They didn't. Here, you won't be able to see me for a sec, but I'm going to go to the actual message and just read to you guys. So I want everyone to get a sense of what it
along with also people commenting on her Instagram asking to speak with Diane like every day. It's obviously not her.
Yeah, it's great.
Sometimes there are bots and stuff. Like I get emails for like to find Alyssa at Gmail or whatever. People are like, "Hello, Alyssa Turney," and I'm like, "Bro,
no."
Yeah, I'm like, "No, hi."
And you're like, "No."
I mean, it definitely happens, especially with social profiles. I think a lot of those are like bots and scammers and whatnot, and they just like see the name.
Well, Detective Cogburn did confirm for me that this was someone in Nigeria. So that was a relief to know that I was right away. I knew off bat that they didn't even speak clear English. You can tell by their texting. Like in their first text, he says, "Hey, this is Davin. I'm a friend to your mom's boyfriend. She is alive and well. She is owing me, and I had to hold her hostage. She is alive. And I'd want you to agree on a compensation plan so she could be freed." I said, "Nope, not unless you can prove it. Where's the photos of her or proof she is alive and with you?" And he said, "As I said, she is alive and in our custody. You have 5 days to come up with compensation plan, else my gang member kill her." am giving you the last opportunity to see your mother alive. I said, I've sent your info to the detective working her case. I'm sure you all will heir from him. Good luck with your scam. You really need a
She
life.
says
And then I put a winky face because I'm cute.
I don't blame you for
Yeah, like I definitely don't feed into that. I could tell, like I said right away, it was not clear English and words. It was just
like
very
Sherry
odd.
had stated herself. Now, if someone had just freshly taken her child, or her child was missing, or this was just such a fresh report, and you're new to this, what desperation would you do? I'd give you any amount of money for my child. I would give it to them in hopes that it wasn't a scam. I'd be praying the whole time it wasn't a scam. I'll give you whatever you want. Just give me this person.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what they pray on. They know that. You know what I mean? They know that. That's how they get their money.
And it's awful.
Yeah, they were hoping I was more like naive and vulnerable. Like, no, she disappeared 15 years ago. Like, I have been hardened to this stuff. I know
for sure.
Like,
absolutely hardens you when when it's such a long period of time. It's not fresh anymore. It just isn't. It just feels different. You mentioned a detective, so I do, I know that we're coming up on the hour here, but I did want to ask you, like, what does that police relationship look like? Are they helping you? Are they involved? Is it kind of, it's open, great, good luck? What does that look like?
I will say that I do get a sense of the last one. It's open, good luck. Because now everyone does have to understand, when I called Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and I called Melbourne Police Department and I called Palm Bay Police Department, all the local departments where my mother went missing, they laughed at me. When I asked them to go do a well check on my mother, who no one has heard from in 15 years, they laughed at me on my birthday, nonetheless. It gets me a little heated because I tried for 10 years to get these people to just take a report from me. Please just listen that she is gone. No one knows where she is. Like, it's not like, oh, we haven't seen her in a couple weeks and like she'll be back around. She's just doing drugs. Like, no, her social security number has had no activity. She doesn't have a driver's license anymore. No one has seen her. Her friends are dead. Her ex-boyfriend's a weirdo. Like, there's all this stuff. And they still just laughed at me. They didn't care. I finally got Jacksonville Sheriff's Office to go and check the last address they had for her, which was 15 years old, which they laughed about. She wasn't there, obviously. A new family lived there, and I told them that. I told them, you're not going to find her there. I used to live in that home. I know she's not there. And finally, I got fed up and started making posts and going to my sleuths on Facebook about this situation, that they will not take the report from me. And finally, someone finally contacted me on Facebook that deals with cadaver dogs. I don't know if it's male or female because the photo is a dog, but the person's name is Florence Dickens, and I'm pretty sure it's a woman. I want to say it's a woman, but they contacted me and basically said they had a phone number for Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office because there was a Jane Doe in that county that matched my mother, and that I should try calling this county sheriff's office to see if they would take the report because there's a matching doe. And that's what I did. And that's how I found Detective John Cogburn. And he is now my detective. He took the case. I mean, he cried with me on the phone the day I called him. This man was like, I'll drive to your grandfather's house today if you want me to. And I was like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. They don't want to be involved, but still the will to do it is there. And I think a lot of it is he's just really busy. He works nights, and he's like in crime, I'm pretty sure. So he's pretty busy, and he'll text me back every once in a while. It's just whenever he texts back, I don't try and push it or be annoying,
I
because then he'll not talk to me ever again. But seriously, it's like it's touch and go with these people. You gotta like just do whatever they want.
No, you're exactly right. That is what it is. You really have to walk that line between I don't want to piss you off, but it also seems like you're not at the point where you need to like hold him accountable. I feel like that trust. I mean, from what I hear from this, minute you've been talking about it or whatever, it seems like there's some trust there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely was a stand-up guy when I first met him. I mean, I think the day after I spoke to him, the DNA kit showed up to my house to be sent back to him. So, I mean, he was real serious. He definitely is keen on the fact that the DNA is the first thing that has to happen before he can do anything else. And so I think that's part of it too. It's just kind of like we're twiddling our thumbs here, waiting for the DNA to come back. And then once that happens, you know, whether it matches or not, I think if it doesn't, I could see him possibly traveling to Brevard to investigate this some more. And if it does match, obviously, he would just present me with results. But yeah, I think that's where Detective Cogburn lies. I don't really know.
But that's good.
He's
I
a
mean,
good
there's
man
always
We don't
hope.
talk too much, so it's hard. But
He's a good man as far as we know.
what's that?
Angela wants to know if there's any dental records.
Yes, for sure. So my grandfather claims that my mother had dentals done when she was young, but again, them not wanting to be involved has put a damper on that situation or me receiving any dental records. Even to get my grandfather to write a testimony or
Pulling
give
teeth.
me the photos that I've received over the last year has been very emotional. Yeah, very emotional for him. I mean, I'll get an email one day and then I won't hear from him for weeks. And then it's like, sorry, I was just like gathering myself after that last one, you know? So I think he tears them up inside out and they just literally don't even want to think or look or talk about it
They
anymore.
want the memories of what they have of her, not what
too much.
It's pretty much what that goes down to.
And I get it.
I feel like they think that whatever situation they might find her in might be worse than what they already know of her. So like Maggie said, they're trying to preserve what they do have in their memories of her. And in my mind, I'm just like, she's my mom. I'm never going to stop looking for her until I find her.
That's my advice
so,
for sure.
Yeah.
Of course, we're at the end of the hour, but Sherry and Aaron, I want to give you guys both a chance to plug. Maggie, I don't know if you have stuff to plug, but you can also, of course, have a chance to plug.
I plug you guys. Like, I don't. I help run the Finding Diane page. Like, that's it.
Because you're amazing. Yeah. And of course, like, because I'm me, I'm always going to like let Sherry go first or whatever. I'm always like family member first. So Sherry, you want to plug where people can help you, where they can find you, what you're doing, how they can get involved?
Yes. On Facebook, we are Finding Diane Francis. There's also a page for the more serious sleuthers or anyone involved in law enforcement or anyone like that that might want to help private investigators. It's called Let's Find Diane. That's the more like private personal page. I only allow people on that one who are very serious about getting involved. And then on Instagram, Diane Francis. It's just Diane Francis. She has her own page that I've created for her on there. Twitter, you can Sipping on Some Crime or also Finding Diane Francis or just Diane Francis, I believe. So any platform, you could really just search her first and last name and something will come up that's related to Aaron, Maggie, or myself. So yeah, that's about it. Oh, and there's also a GoFundMe page for her that's also just Diane Francis. And that right there is for me to get to Florida with Aaron and possibly Maggie as well at some point to do our own searching and investigating. That's our ultimate goal. We want to walk this hotel where she was.
Because I'll be in Florida in October for CrimeCon. So
don't give me chills. Divine intervention, girl. I'm telling you, it'll come.
I'm telling you.
You said it. It's in the universe.
But yeah, and of course, Aaron, you have made amazing episodes on this story. You've chronicled it in 3 parts now. So yeah, tell people where they can listen to it, where they can find you. Plug your podcast.
And speak up because we're very low.
So honestly, any podcast platform right now. We're still working on like what kind of episodes to push out with Diane because it's a developing story, as always. There's a lot of cases. I've had a lot of families reach out, so there's a lot of more stories I want to tell. Right now, I'm kind of dealing with my own health stuff, and I kind of got some stuff going on. So I'm really happy that people have reached out and asked to tell Sherry's story, because I feel so bad all the time that Sherry has to rely, you know, in this mini series that we're creating, she has to rely on such a big part of me. And when I'm not able to be there for her because I don't feel good, it's just crummy. So people that have reached out and have done stuff to help her, like, please, if you're a podcaster and you want to tell her story, take whatever you have to do it, because that's the ultimate goal for me. It's going to end up being for a little bit that I'm probably going to step back and tell some smaller little bit stories based around when I can be healthy and good. But I know that I feel like Maggie and Sherry are going to be the one that steps up and starts the next podcast. And we have talked a lot about, I think Sherry's idea is beautiful. She wants to call those stories, you know, my Diane or my Alyssa. So she wants to do more, not just her own mother's story, but really focus in the same direction that I like to too, is the family and, you know, the person themselves, and not just what happened to them and the people that did it to them, the people that should get their name out there.
Well, of course. I mean, Sherry, it sounds like a great episode, or probably many episodes for Voices for Justice Season 2. Just throwing it out there.
I'm here. Hey, you could
Well,
be
we
like
live in the
at
same
my
state
house
too,
right
so
now.
like
I
I will give you
like
like
20 minutes apart. She lives,
Yes.
you guys live like 20 minutes away.
I know we have no
Exactly.
excuse, Sarah. I told you last time. We have no
Legit, I'm
excuse.
like, I meet her and I'm like, oh my God, I love you. I want to tell your story. Now I'm going to move like all the way across the
Yeah.
other side of the country.
We were all in the same place
Yeah,
at
Erin,
one time. I don't know
cool
why we
move
didn't
there.
create an
That was
entire
sly.
podcast
That
right
was
that
real
second.
slick.
I mean, it really is a miss.
We were just like, hey, let's go have dinner, and then just
I'm
not
saying,
talk
I
for
know.
6 months.
We were just like,
All
But
right.
it needs,
I know.
this is true.
Let's just make a
We should have been like,
podcast,
why are we at
duh.
this crime
Let's record
junkie
on our
show? Let's
phones
go
right
make our
now.
own
It's fine, we got
podcast.
this.
All right. Yeah. Miss Sherry, is there anything you want to say before we stop the broadcast?
No, I think we pretty much covered it all. It's a huge case, so I mean, obviously we didn't cover every tidbit, but the general story of my mother is
okay. Well, I want
covered
to thank
at
everybody
this
for
point,
listening.
so.
Please go find Sherry. Please go find Diane's story. Please listen to it. It's very important. She is fighting very hard. If you feel any type of way for me and Alyssa, please extend that same love to Miss Sherry. But other than that, thank you guys, and please feel free to come back anytime, especially if that DNA comes in. Like, let's talk about it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Any changes, I'll let you guys know, and we can get together.
Well, awesome.
Again.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for having me.
Love you.